I believe that everyone has a passion, something that they love doing, or something that they enjoy doing. They don't have to be good at it, but they do have that passion. For me, it took me a while to find my passion. Ever since I was a young girl, I loved to read. Stories enthralled me, and I loved falling into this imaginative world where anything and everything was possible. I know most people wouldn't really consider reading to be a passion, but in some way or form, it was for me. That is, until I grew up. I began to see the passions and hobbies of those around me. Some of my friends could sing beautiful melodies and tunes. Others could cook a storm in the kitchen, and some could write verses to rival those of Shakespeare. It really made me wonder and question, did I have a passion? Was there something that I would enjoy doing as much as they did? These thoughts conflicted me for quite some time, until one stormy evening, everything changed. I picked up a piece of paper and randomly began writing about the weather. Eventually, that turned into a story about a girl coming back from a terrible high school dance. My writing was dreadful, but I continued writing on that piece of paper with that same thick, ugly marker. I didn't know where I was going with this, but it was just something that I did when I was bored. However, the summer before high school, everything changed. I discovered an online website called Wattpad, which connects amateur writers with readers. This website gave me access to so many books, and that summer, I spent my time reading as much as I could. It was amazing that people only a couple of years older than me were writing these tales that I could really relate to. And when school started, I made a new friend. She was a writer on Wattpad. I offered to edit some of her work, and we went back and forth, eventually becoming closer. That's when I confessed to her that I, too, was a writer. She read my work, really liked it, and told me to post it on the website. But I was terrified. My story followed the journey of a young teenage girl, and it was really personal to me. Many of the characters and events that had occurred in the story were reflective of my lives, but also the lives around me. I was terrified of being judged. It took a lot of convincing, but on August 24th, 2014, I posted my story under a pen name. With a couple of chapters in stock, I thought this whole writing thing would be easy. But boy, was I in for a ride. Writing, as I soon found out, was not easy. I would write an entire chapter, but feeling unsatisfied, delete large portions of it. Not only that, I was constantly doubting myself. I felt as though my writing wasn't enough. Sometimes I felt like giving up. And these thoughts eventually did get the better of me. I was unable to write for 7 months. During that time, I didn't feel like continuing to write. I felt as though no one was going to read my work. What was the point of writing? This time was really difficult, but with the support of few loyal followers and my close friends, I persisted. I wrote chapter after chapter, and as I wrote, I gained feedback, and I became a better writer. And finally, on November 12, 2015, I completed my first novel. This story totaled about 84,000 words and 122 pages. I was astounded that I had been able to write something so large. And I think that's the point where my creativity opened. I believed I could do this. My brain was filled with dozens of story ideas. I'd been thinking about writing a fantasy novel on the side for quite some time, but with the completion of my teen fiction novel, I decided to go for it. The story was quite different. For starters, I decided to write in third person instead of first. Switching perspectives was really difficult, especially at the beginning. Mid-paragraph I'd be typing and I found myself switching from third person to first. It took a lot of time and practice, but I got better. Not only that, the story also required a lot of research. I had to research medieval hierarchy, tactics of war, what people wore, how to fight with different weapons, herbs that could be used for healing, and so much more information. It was time-consuming, but it truly added to the richness to the writing. I posted chapter after chapter, and that's when my readership began to grow. People were applauding the story that I had written. They could relate to certain characters. They wanted to know what happened next. And when my story hit 10,000 reads, I was really grateful. I had the support behind me, and that was very instrumental in me being able to finish my second novel in under a year. But this time, it totaled 145,000 words and 210 pages. For reference, some of you may not be that good at numbers, this is about the same length as Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. After writing 2 stories, I fell in love with writing even more. Finally, I had found my passion. When someone asked what I like doing in my spare time, I now had an answer. It wasn't something conventional like baking or painting, but writing was special to me. Writing was magical. Writing was an escape. I was able to craft my frustrations and write them out in characters. I was able to talk about issues about the world. I could really give my readers a portion of my brain and share thoughts with them and even influence what they thought. About what they thought. It was astounding to see the power that my pen, or in this case, my keyboard had. The next step in my writing journey came when I took a grade 12 course called Writer's Craft. This class only had about 15 of us, and it was really small, but this was the first class I was in with writers. It was nerve-wracking, especially at the beginning. I felt very uncomfortable with sharing my work, and oftentimes I felt as though it couldn't compete with that of my peers. It took a lot of weeks, but I slowly became more comfortable with sharing my ideas and sharing my thoughts and what I was writing. I didn't get to write another novel during this time. However, I did gain a lot of feedback and I learned a lot of different writing styles as well. With the completion of the course, I sat down trying to write the third chapter of a novel that had started 6 months prior. However, I was struggling. I couldn't type a single word. It took me a while to realize that the problem lay in the fact that my writing style had changed. I had changed. I could no longer do what I was doing before. Seeing the solution, my fingers were itching to start typing again, but I was also in the midst of my first year of university. Being a first semester, it was very difficult. Oftentimes, I felt alone and sad. My marks were dropping, and I just didn't know what to do. So, with great sadness, I decided to put my writing on hold. In hindsight, looking back, if I had probably chosen to write during this time, I probably would have been a much happier person. But you know what they say, you can't change the past, but you can change the future. So that's what I decided to do. When my first semester of university ended, I decided that whatever I would write for myself. Yes, I still had a passion for writing, but sometimes I found myself writing things to please others or what they wanted to read. And that's when I was getting stuck. To move forward, I really need to ignore those thoughts and instead of writing what others wanted to read, write what I wanted to write. And so I wrote, and it was truly a freeing feeling. Writing had become this burden upon my shoulders sometimes. But when I wrote for myself, I wrote for my sanity. I wrote for my freedom. I wrote for my happiness. It no longer mattered to me if my writing wasn't enough for others, because it was enough for me. Through the difficulties of life, my passion for writing has truly been my saving grace. It has helped me numerous times and has made me a better person. And that's why I advocate so passionately for everyone to have a passion. Having a passion is important, and having that bubble for yourself is very important for yourself, but it's also important for your sanity. And also for the world. Some of you may be confused at this statement. How can having a passion help the world? Well, let me give you a few examples, starting with my own passion for writing. When I wrote about diverse characters, when I wrote about characters that had different backgrounds, a lot of my readers commented or they said that they had learned new things or they had experienced or had never thought about certain things in certain ways. And they were learning something, and that learning something is very important for understanding between humans and understanding between different cultures and different religions. Let me give you another example. If someone has a passion for food, they're able to fuse different spices, different colors, and they're able to create a delicious meal that can really be enjoyed by anyone around them. It doesn't have to be from some place or some geography. It can be enjoyed by people all over the world. And lastly, if someone has a passion for journalism, they're able to find the stories of the oppressed, the broken, the hurt. They're able to make us care. They're able to unite the world for a common cause. All three of these things have one thing and one thing in common. Having a passion can be used to create love, harmony, and peace and understanding between people. So I've talked about my passion and how I'm using it to change the world. I turn the question to you now. Do you have a passion? If so, how are you going to use it to change the world? And if not, I think it's the perfect time to start looking. It won't be easy finding your passion, but when you do, you'll be unlocking the power to change the world. Thank you.